are the ones who create new organizations or integrate renewal within an existing organization. As the definition suggests, entrepreneurs can act either independently or in affiliation with an existing organization, although the former is more prevalent and has received the most attention. I'll be taking you through many definitions defined by many management scientists who an entrepreneur is later in the discussion. Before I can take you to those definitions, let me tell you a story about Soumya, who was an entrepreneur. Soumya grew up in a village in Karnataka. Her parents came to Bangalore in search of a better job. While growing up, Soumya saw her parents working very hard. Her father started working in a small shop which sold clothes, and her mother started working as a cook in someone's house. Soumya wanted to support her family. She was now going to college and wanted to start making money. When she turned 18, Soumya thought, what can I do which will help me make more money and where people will keep buying from me again and again. This talks about the need that she has. She noticed that the girls in her college cared about their health and did not want to eat chips and other unhealthy food. She recognizes an opportunity in this particular aspect. So she started making healthy snacks and sold them to her friends in college. This is the idea and start of a business. Her friends loved it because not only was the snack healthy, it was also very tasty. She then started selling her tasty healthy snacks to people in her area. She then started to sell all the healthy snacks that she prepared, not just in the college, but in and around the neighborhood that she lived in. As the demand for her snacks increased, Soumya asked her parents and friends to give her some money to buy a small machine which would help her in making more snacks. So she started making 5 times the snacks, the healthier ones. She started giving a small commission to her friends to sell these snacks in their own societies. So what she is trying to do is she is trying to grow her business. After 2 years, Soumya now sells her snacks in every small shop. She continued studying while doing the business and was able to pay her college fees from her own earning. Isn't this a beautiful story of Soumya? This talks about who an entrepreneur is. You start with a need, you recognize an opportunity, you have an idea to start a business, then you grow the business. As I told you, an entrepreneur can be defined in various ways. I told you, Richard Cantillon defined an entrepreneur as a person who pays a certain price to a product to resell it at an uncertain price, thereby making decisions about obtaining and using the resources while consequently admitting the risk of enterprise. This is a typical definition of an entrepreneur. Adam Smith defined an entrepreneur as an individual who undertakes the formation of an organization for commercial purposes by recognizing the potential demand for goods and services, and thereby acts as an economic agent and transforms demand into supply. Joseph Scumchair defined entrepreneur as innovators. He said entrepreneurs are innovators who use the process of entrepreneurship, which we discussed yesterday, the process of entrepreneurship, to set up the status quo of the existing products and services, to set up new products, new services. He argued that entrepreneurs are innovators. Peter Drucker, the famous, the founding father of management science, and he defined an entrepreneur as an is one who always searches for changes, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. He believes in increasing the value and customer satisfaction. Thus, a professional manager who mobilizes resources and allocates them to make a commercial gain from an opportunity is also called an entrepreneur. So, having looked at all these definitions, let us sum up who an entrepreneur is or what entrepreneurship is all about. Entrepreneurship can be defined as a systematic innovation, which consists of the purposeful and organized search for changes and a systematic analysis of the opportunities that such change might offer for economic and social transformation. Before we can dwell further on who an entrepreneur is and some aspect of entrepreneurship, let me tell you what is known as an enterprise. Basically, an entrepreneur is a person who starts an enterprise. The process of creation is called entrepreneurship. The entrepreneur is the actor and entrepreneurship is the act. So the outcome of the actor and the act is called the enterprise. An enterprise is the business organization that is formed and which provides goods and services. Not just that, it creates jobs, contributes to national income, exports, and contributes to the overall economic development. Before we can further dig deep into the discussion, the topic, let us take a look of the difference between entrepreneur versus entrepreneurship, the similarities, the dissimilarities. The term entrepreneur is often used interchangeably with the term entrepreneurship, but conceptually they are different. Yet they are just like the two sides of a coin. Both the terms are correlated. An entrepreneur is a person who bears the risks, unites various factors of production, and carries out creative innovations. He or she is an individual or one of a group of individuals who try to create something new. He or she always is attempting to bring about a change in terms of factor proportions, which is known as innovation. On the contrary, entrepreneurship is a set of activities performed by an entrepreneur. It is a process of identifying opportunities in the market. It is about a series of activities that identifies opportunities in the marketplace and marshals the resources required to pursue these opportunities for long-term gains. It is nothing but just an attempt to create value. This particular slide shows you the various functions that an entrepreneur carries out. Broadly, they can be divided into four types. you have entrepreneurial functions, you have promotional functions, you have managerial functions, and you have commercial functions. Please take note, the most important ones are the first one and the second one. Then once you have established yourself, you need to shift to the next two, 3 and 4 functions, managerial functions and commercial functions. But the first one, the entrepreneurial functions, are the most important one while transforming an idea into a concrete aspect. We will take a look into these 4 types of functions that an entrepreneur carries out. The first one, as you see, is the entrepreneurial function, and the first sub-function that you need to call as the entrepreneurial function is innovation. Every entrepreneur, as Comtier said, is an innovator. You ought to innovate. Now, what is innovation? This is the basic function of an entrepreneur. As an innovator, the entrepreneur has to introduce new combinations of the means of production, new product, new market for a product, and new source of raw material. They introduce something new in any branch of economic activity. He or she forces a potential profitable opportunity and tries to exploit it. I can give you a few examples. The example of iPod, smartphones, induction cooker, etc. The second entrepreneurial function is about risk taking. As an entrepreneur, you need to take risks, and the ability refers to taking responsibility for a loss that may occur due to unforeseen contingencies in the future. An entrepreneur reduces uncertainty in his or her plan of investment, diversification of production, and expansion of the enterprise. An entrepreneur is a self-confident and highly optimistic person willing to assume the risks involved in innovations, new ventures, and expansion of an existing venture. For example, narrating an incident from Dhirubhai's life, his son Mukesh recalls that when Dhirubhai was flown to Jamnagar and shown a piece of barren land, he asked why mangoes could not be grown there. The officials informed him that the land was not fertile enough for mango crop. Dhirubhai took it as a challenge and told those officials that it was for the same reason why mangoes ought to be grown there. After just a few years, the entire land of about 2,000 acres had been converted green, and 6,000 tons of mango crop was harvested from the same land. So Dhirubhai took a risk here and believed in its success, thus translating it into the best of mango variety, the Alfonso, which is being grown in that region. Organizational building, organization and management are the main functions of an entrepreneur. They refer to bringing together of the various factors of production. The purpose is to allocate the productive resources in order to minimize losses and reduce costs in production. All decisions relating to an enterprise is taken by the entrepreneur. He or she alone determines the limits of business to expand and capital to employ. Thus, we can say an entrepreneur is the final judge in the conduct of his/her business. Moving on to the second entrepreneurial function, that is the promotional functions carried out by an entrepreneur. The first function for an entrepreneur is discovery of an idea. The entrepreneur visualizes that there are opportunities. Like as I gave you the example of Dhirubhai, there are opportunities for particular type of business and it can be profitably run. The idea may be to exploit new areas of natural resources, more profitable venture, or an existing line of business. He or she develops the idea with the experts in the field, and if they are convinced, then he or she will go ahead with more exhaustive analysis. Let me give you an example here. Karshan Bhai Patel, the creator of Nirma washing powder, who was working as a factory chemist in Gujarat Mineral Development Corporation, started making detergent powder in his kitchen for poor rural women of Gujarat and selling his product by visiting different villages. His efforts culminated in the white is yellow detergent powder named Nirma. The idea behind Nirma was need and the problem of the society that could not afford other brands of detergent powders because of their high cost. Today, Nirma is one of the world's biggest detergent powder manufacturer. The brand sells over 8 lakh tons annually. It holds 40% of the Indian market with a turnover of more than rupees 2,500 crores. This is a creative effort and risk-taking ability of a person who turned out to be an entrepreneur. The strength of being capable is the plus point in an entrepreneur. Another promotional function for an entrepreneur is detailed investigation. You ought not just have an idea. You need to have a detailed investigation of that idea. The entrepreneur will estimate the total demand for the product. After determining the prospective demand for goods, he or she will think of arranging finances for the venture, along with the availability of power, labor, raw materials, and machinery. The work of estimation becomes complicated if it is a new line of business. The estimates should be based on proper analysis of various factors. The next promotional function is assembling the requirement. It's not just about having an idea, carrying out a detailed investigation. You should also assemble the requirements as an entrepreneur. After making sure that the proposition is practical and profitable, the entrepreneur proceeds to assemble the requirements. He persuades some more people to join him on board. He may also be required to acquire some patent rights if he has invented something new. The entrepreneur then selects the factory site, decides about plant and machinery, and contacts suppliers of raw materials. Preliminary contacts are finalized and project is set to begin. Another promotional function is financing the proposition. It's not just about having an idea, doing a detailed investigation, and assembling the requirements. You need to also finance the proposition as an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur decides about the capital structure of the enterprise. The requirements of finance are estimated first, then the sources from which money will come up are determined. Long-term, short-term financial requirements are estimated, and the type of source of funds is also decided, like shares, debentures, loans, etc. Let me give you an example of when Narayan Murthy started Infosys in 1981. He had no capital, and his wife Sudha Murthy gave him rupees 10,000, which she had saved for a rainy day. So, after having discussed the first two major functions, now let me take you to the next entrepreneurial function, or the entrepreneur's function, which is the managerial functions. Once the enterprise has taken shape, the idea has taken shape. Then comes the managerial functions that a manager needs to carry out at different levels of the organization's hierarchy. He is involved in the basic managerial function of planning, which helps in determining the course of action to be followed to achieve various entrepreneurial objectives. He organizes, every business enterprise needs the service of a number of persons to look after its different aspects. So the entrepreneur sets up the objectives or goals to be achieved by its personnel. The function of organizing is to arrange, guide, coordinate, direct, and control the activities of the factors of production. Another important managerial function is it involves making appointments for the positions created by the organizational process. It is concerned with the human resource of an enterprise. You need to carry out manpower planning, recruitment, selection and placement of manpower, human resource development, promotion, transfer, appraisal and determination of employees' remuneration. Another important managerial function is directing. It is concerned with carrying out the desired plans. It initiates organized and planned actions and ensures effective performance by subordinates towards the accomplishment of group activities. Leadership is an important managerial function. An entrepreneur is an innovator. He is also a leader because he is running his own show. So he ought to develop quickly leadership ability. It is nothing but the process by which an entrepreneur imaginatively directs or guides and influences the work of others in choosing and attaining specified goals by mediating between the individual and organization in such a manner that both will get the maximum satisfaction. One of the most, you can have an idea, you can do a detailed investigation, you can do many other important activities. But if you cannot communicate what you intend to do or what is the thing that you ought to provide to the service, to the society, it's of no use. So communication is another important managerial activity for every entrepreneur. It constitutes a very important function of the entrepreneur. It is observed to be the most prevalent problem among entrepreneurs today. It has been established that entrepreneurs spend 75% to 90% of their working time communicating with others. Communication refers to the exchange of ideas, feelings, emotions, knowledge, and information between two or more persons. Nothing happens in management until effective communication takes place. Motivation and supervision are two other important managerial functions. Motivation is the psychological process of creating an urge among the subordinates to do certain things or behave in the desired manner. The importance of motivation can be realized from the fact that the performance of a worker depends on his or her ability and the motivation. A sound motivation system must be productive. It must be competitive. It must be comprehensive and flexible. And it must consider the psychological, the social, the safety, the ego, and the economic needs of the worker. Supervision is a very important managerial function. After issuing instructions, the entrepreneur has to see that the given instructions are carried out. Supervision refers to the job of overseeing subordinates at work to ensure the maximum utilization of resources, to get the required and directed work done, and to correct the subordinates wherever they go wrong. Coordination is another important function managerial function, as it is essential to channelize the activities of various individuals in the organization for the achievement of common goal. And controlling is the process which enables the entrepreneur to get his or her company's policies implemented and take corrective action if performance is not according to the predetermined standards. The process of controlling begins with establishing standards of performance, measuring actual performance, comparing the actual performance with the standard, finding variations, and finally taking corrective action. The last function for entrepreneurs is the commercial function. It talks about production, finance, marketing, personnel, accounting. Now, coming back to the entrepreneur and the many theories of entrepreneurship, you will know that an early conceptualization by Richard Cantillon in 1734 characterizes entrepreneurs as individuals driven by profit. Also, they have the ability to realize such profits by buying low and selling high. In his treatise on political economy in 1816, Say also focuses on the quest for profit as characteristics of entrepreneurs, while emphasizing that entrepreneurs use periods of change and uncertainty to relocate resources. The management scientist describes the entrepreneur as a person involved in creating newness. These early definition of the term entrepreneur focuses on the creation part and thus are behavioral in nature. However, entrepreneurs were also regarded as individuals with unique qualities. For example, Say in 1816 attributes special qualities such as judgment, perseverance, and knowledge to the entrepreneur. By contrast, the most important contemporary theory of entrepreneurship focuses exclusively on the behavioral aspects of an entrepreneur. Schumpeter in 1934 conceptualizes the entrepreneur as an innovator without necessarily being an owner. In fact, Schumpeter argues that risk bearing is inherent to owners and capitalists and is not an entrepreneurial function. To Schumpeter, an individual, an entrepreneur, only when engaged in the development of new combinations such as introduction of new goods or a new method of production. He said that an individual ceases to be an entrepreneur once the set of tasks is carried out and the individual turns to new occupations. Most typically, the management of the enterprise created to exploit a new combination. For Schumpeter, the entrepreneurial act term creative destruction disturbs existing equilibrium situations in an economy. By contrast, the Austrian school, as exemplified by Krisner in 1973, suggests that entrepreneurs take advantage of disequilibrium in the market and thereby guide the economy towards equilibrium. For Krisner, it is the ability of the individual to perceive opportunities in their environment that distinguishes entrepreneurs from non-entrepreneurs. His notion of entrepreneurial alertness goes beyond the assumption that entrepreneurs possess superior information. Instead, alertness refers to the ability to recognize market information that provides profitable opportunities. In the received view, these two perspectives are integrated. The entrepreneur creates new ventures by either exploiting inefficiencies or creating new resource combinations. So, both of these viewpoints suggest that being an entrepreneur is a behavior might display at certain points in his or her life. Ronstadt in 1988 has further shown that this behavior may be recurring and can expose an individual to ideas and opportunities that make it likely that he or she will display the behavior again in the future. An implication of Ronstadt's work is that serious entrepreneurs learn from their venturing efforts. Minity in 2005 adds to this understanding by explaining how would-be entrepreneurs learn from the actions of other entrepreneurs in a path-dependent and self-reinforcing process that can create positive externalities in a society. However, until the later part of the 20th century, entrepreneurship research outside of economics focused largely on the personal and psychological characteristics of entrepreneurs. Labeled the trait approach, Gartner in 1988, his school of thought often presented entrepreneurs as inspirational leaders who differed from the general population in terms of their risk-taking propensity, need for achievement, perceived locus of control, autonomy, perseverance, commitment, creativity, single-mindedness, physical attractiveness, popularity, sociability, intelligence, diplomacy, decisiveness, and birth order. Among the most prominent of adherents to this perspective was McClellan. His book, The Achieving Society, and others similar to it, helped set the direction of the field for approximately a quarter of a century. McClellan argued that individuals with a high need for achievement compared to other members of the society are prone to engage in entrepreneurial activities, as opportunity exploitation satisfies the need for accomplishments. By contrast, the behavioral approach does not concentrate on personality characteristics but regards contextual factors, such as the way entrepreneurs find opportunities, acquire resources, and formulate entry strategies as more important. Thus, this line of research focuses on the decisions an entrepreneur makes and what an entrepreneur does, not who he do. This perspective has addressed questions such as why entrepreneurs act, how entrepreneurs seek, discover, and pursue opportunities, and what are the consequences of their actions. For example, research has suggested that entrepreneurs use simple decision rules and heuristics more frequently than managers, and are likely to use effectuation process to create opportunities as well as exhibit alertness to discover opportunities in the environment. Recent evidence reconfirms the importance of understanding the individual entrepreneur. This work expands on the trait approach to include the individual resources an entrepreneur possesses and the preparation he or she has made for embarking on an entrepreneurial career. Factors such as network, industry, management, and venturing experience, skills and abilities, cognition, and the educational background have been identified as potential determinants of entrepreneurship. Genetic factors have now been added to this list. This revised focus provides a more balanced understanding of entrepreneurs and is consistent with the conventional wisdom of venture capitalists, who believe that the behaviors and characteristics of an entrepreneur are more important than a venture's strategy. Now, in order to recapitulate the entire discussion on who an entrepreneur is, let me once again tell you that the most common definition of who an entrepreneur could be a person who anticipates demand, brings all other factors of production, that is land, labor, and capital together, and takes risk. Entrepreneurs can be of different types and may prefer to do it alone and share the risks in groups with others. Is entrepreneurship an inborn quality or can it be inculcated? Many famous entrepreneurs like Dhirubhai Ambani, Bill Gates have shown that it is an inborn quality, but certainly the quality, that is the entrepreneurial competencies, can be honed or polished by training. Before I can take you some of the entrepreneurial competencies, let me tell you there are various entrepreneurial types that you may recognize from among the ones you know maybe. One particular entrepreneurial type is the solo operator. He is a person who essentially works alone and has a few employees. Most people, when they think of starting up a business, perceive themselves like them, solo operators. Another entrepreneurial type is the active partner. These are basically solo operators who are partners to contribute money to the business without actively participating in it. You can also have another type of entrepreneurial type like the partners. These are those entrepreneurs who carry on the enterprise as a joint activity, all of them actively participating in the business of the firm. Another entrepreneurial type is an inventor. These are those whose chief competency is their creativity and inventiveness. They like to invent new products and may need to set up a business to make them commercially and market them. As the interest is basically research, and as they often lack managerial experience or desire to run a business, they end up disenchanted and frustrated. Another very important entrepreneurial type is the challengers. These are those who get into business because of the challenge it represents and tend to get bored when it seems to be settled and doing well. They then begin to look for newer challenges. You can also have another type called as the buyers, who tend to purchase businesses rather than start one themselves, as it appears to them to be the less risky alternative. You can also have another entrepreneurial type called the lifetimers, are those who see their business as integral to their life. It is a matter of ego satisfaction and personal concern to them to run the business successfully. Family enterprises and businesses, depending on exercise of personal skill, come into this category. Now, let me take you to the next discussion, the major entrepreneurial competencies that an entrepreneur should develop. The knowledge about entrepreneurial competencies has been sharpened over the last 3 decades. Earlier, there used to be a firm belief that people with business family background could become successful entrepreneurs. Subsequently, there was a belief that individuals need technical know-how as a major requirement for being successful in launching all industrial ventures. In order to understand clearly what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, the Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India took up a research project based on major studies done in this area. Following is a list of major competencies that contributes towards top performance. The first one, initiative. All entrepreneurs take action that go beyond job requirements or the demand of the situation does things before being asked or forced by the events, acts to extend the business into new areas, products, or services. Another entrepreneurial competency is that an entrepreneur sees and acts on opportunities. He looks for and takes action on opportunities. He feels and acts on opportunities. He seizes unusual opportunities to obtain financing, equipment, land, workspace, or assistance. Another important competency of an entrepreneur is his persistence. He takes repeated action to overcome obstacles that get in the way of reaching goals. He takes action persistently till the problem is solved. He takes repeated or different actions to overcome obstacles. Problem solving is an important entrepreneurial competency that every entrepreneur should have. As a problem solver, he identifies new and potentially unique ideas to reach goals. He switches to alternative strategy to reach a goal. He generates new idea or innovative solutions. Last but not the least, you have these competencies which you need to develop. What are they? They are the self-confidence that you need to have. You need to strongly believe in your own self and your abilities. You need to be an information seeker because you need to take action on your own to get information to help reach objectives or solve problems. You should have a good competency in the concern for high quality of work as a top class entrepreneur. You need to act to do things that meet or beat existing standards of excellence. You need to be committed to a work contract. As an entrepreneur, you need to place the highest priority on getting a job completed. Efficiency orientation, this is another competency that you need to develop quickly. You need to find ways to do things faster or with fewer resources or at a lower cost. You need to get involved in systematic planning using logic, step-by-step plans to reach your goals. You need to be assertive. Every entrepreneur need to be assertive because you confront problems and issues with others directly. You tell others what they have to do. You reprimand or discipline those failing to perform as expected. Persuasion is an important competency for every entrepreneur. You need to successfully persuade others. You need to convince someone to buy a product or service. So persuasiveness is another important competency for an entrepreneur. You need to use or influence strategies. You need to monitor things. And the most important competency is that you need to be concerned for the people working under you. You need to be concerned for employee welfare. Your thinking should always revolve around economics. You need to be economical. You try to complete the work according to the planned expenditure to save money and not be extravagant. Having said all about these competencies, let me tell you that as a top-notch entrepreneur, to be a role model for others, you need to be ethical all the time, every time. As an ethical entrepreneur, you try to produce without destroying environment, not to cheat anyone else's work. This is what you need to keep in mind. Are these all competencies independent? All these competencies that are described above are instrumental in making a person a successful entrepreneur. Through these competencies, we can discriminate between successful entrepreneurs and average ones. All these competencies are interrelated. Depending on the nature and content of these competencies, they could be clubbed into various clusters. These competencies could be developed through systematic training. In earlier discussions today, we have seen that competencies do result in a superior performance. Many studies have proved that entrepreneurial competency can be inculcated through proper education and training. To inculcate entrepreneurial competency in an individual, the following 5 steps can be taken into consideration. What are these steps? Let us discuss the steps in brief. First is understanding and recognizing. The first step towards acquiring a new behavior is to understand what a particular competency means. With such an understanding, one would then be able to recognize the competency when someone exhibits. Second step is self-assessment. Having understood a given competency and having been able to recognize the same when someone else exhibits a given competency, the next step is to find out where one stands with respect to that given competency. In order to help one identify the level of one's competencies, a questionnaire, a self-rating questionnaire can be developed, which can be answered by the respondents, and later on it can be coded to understand one's level of competencies. After coding to know where one stands with respect to various entrepreneurial competencies, I can suggest you need to do some introspection. Third step is practice. Having gone through the first 2 steps, one would be in a position to decide the competencies that are not a part of one's personality, but one would like to acquire those competencies and strengthen others. By practice, we mean exhibiting a given competency in a variety of situations, both simulated and real. Help from a trained facilitator is called for to develop the competencies through practice in simulated. Step 4, application in real life situations. Any new behavior that one acquires would become a part of one's personality only when one applies the same on a continuous basis in various activities. Feedback is the next stage. One's desire to acquire new behavior, internalize and practice the same would be strong only when one understands the benefit of operating as per the newly acquired behavior versus usual old behavioral pattern. Economic growth depends on the rate of innovation in the economic field, which in turn depends on the number of quality of entrepreneurs in the society. Thus, entrepreneur is an agent of progress in the society. If you remember, in yesterday's class, I told you that entrepreneurs are the harbingers of prosperity of a society. The reason for slow progress of our Indian economy during the first 4 decades of independence is that the Indian entrepreneur has been silent. But as our economy has been progressing, we have seen an upsurge in the number of entrepreneurs emerging in all fields, but more needs to be done for increased economic growth in our country. Now, to wind up today's discussion, let me take you quickly through the need for entrepreneurship, which can be highlighted as entrepreneurship, when practiced, becomes the lifeline of a nation. No country can progress without the development of entrepreneurship. Every country is trying to promote its trade so that it is able to share the benefits of development. Therefore, entrepreneurship is the yardstick to measure the level of development of a country. Next, entrepreneurship provides innovation. Entrepreneurship provides new ideas, imagination, and vision to the enterprise. An entrepreneur is an innovator as he tries to find new technology, products, and markets. He increases the productivity of various resources. The entrepreneur stands at the center of the whole process of economic development. He conceives business ideas and puts them into effect to enhance the process of economic development. As we have already seen these two needs of entrepreneurship, the next two are the change of growth, that is inclusive growth. An enterprise operates in a changing environment. The entrepreneur molds the enterprise in such a changing environment. The latter molds not only the enterprise but also alters the environment itself to ensure the success of the enterprise. In order to meet the challenge of automation and the complexities of advanced technology, there is a need for the development of entrepreneurship. Increased profit is another need of entrepreneurship. Profits can be increased in any enterprise, either by increasing sales revenue or reducing cost. To increase sales revenue is beyond the control of an enterprise. Entrepreneurship, by reducing cost, increases profit and provides opportunities for future growth and development. Employment opportunities. Entrepreneurship provides employment opportunities. Many of its activities provide the maximum employment potential. Large number of persons are employed in entrepreneurial activities in the country. The growth in these activities bring more and more employment opportunities. Social benefits. It's not only beneficial to business enterprise, but social benefits bring about or contribute to the society at large. It raises the standard of living by providing good quality products and services at the lowest possible cost. It also makes entrepreneurship also makes the optimum use of scarce resources and promotes peace and prosperity in the society. So with this, we come to the end of today's discussion on Unit 2. We discussed the topic on entrepreneurial competencies in two parts. First, we understood who an entrepreneur is. Then we looked into the various competencies that a top-notch entrepreneur should adapt to. Thank you.